Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the podcast Smash Metafiction. Its continuing mission? To re-examine familiar stories, to retell them using dramatically different characters, to boldly embark on a grand journey called Surprise Party. Captain's Log, Stardate 13728.1. The future may be post-scarcity and utopian, but that doesn't mean that there isn't anything interesting to do. The United Federation of Planets has dispatched its finest starship, the USS Enterprise, on a 5-year mission of exploration, discovery, and peace. We, of course, are very familiar with a number of different Enterprises with a number of different crews, to say nothing of the occasional Voyager, Discovery, or deep space stations of various numbers. But let's be real, none of these crews have ever really gotten it right. But that ends today. Gene Roddenberry might have been too cowardly to populate the bridge with characters from Disney movies and 90s sitcoms, but we are made of sterner stuff. I'm Dan Mulcairn, and I'm sitting in the captain's chair today. To my right, wearing her counselor pajamas, is Claire Mulcairn.
Here to make sure that all of you trek your privilege.
Oh, yeah!
At the helm is Miles Schneiderman.
Guys, even though this is a competitive match, I have decided that tonight I'm going to like a calm, tranquil, easygoing place. In other words, where no Miles has gone before.
And transmitting from the brig, where she's spending time for breaking several Starfleet regulations against excessive shipping, is MeganBob.
Dan!
As with every episode of Surprise Party, we'll be taking a classic team-centric story, in this case, Star Trek, and we are replacing the central characters with characters from other fictional properties. Each of the Smashfic hosts here with me will create their own group of senior bridge officers to explore the far corners of the Alpha Quadrant. Once each of the advocates have their teams created, I'll present them with challenges that they encounter along the way. The advocates will take turns choosing a character from their team and explain how they deal with that challenge. After that point, their chosen character is unusable for the remainder of the game. At the end of each challenge, I'll decide privately which character met the challenge the best and award points to the advocates accordingly, and then we'll move on. At the end of the episode, when we sit down for a friendly game of poker, I'll see which advocate had the most points, and they and their party will be declared the winner. So, first off, let's choose your characters, and in order to do that, we're going to be rolling initiative.
10.
I got a 16.
Got a mighty 1.
Nice.
Ooh.
All right, the order will be Miles, MeganBob, Claire, but this order will be rotating every round. The first character slot each of you will be filling is the captain. This is the central figure of leadership on the Enterprise. The captain may have been given their mission from the higher-ups, but they're the ones who get to determine how to carry it out. The captain also serves as the face of the ship, and is frequently the one who will have to negotiate with unknown and potentially hostile alien forces. Your ship and crew will encounter a great many unexpected challenges on their journey. When that happens, all eyes will turn to the captain. Miles, who is your captain?
My captain is Maya Drajar, a.k.a. the Emperor Edrahasavar VII, from the novel
God.
The Goblin Emperor.
Yay.
And the parade of obscure Miles characters continues. Very good. Let's hear about her.
It's him, actually. Maya is a goblin in a world, or in a country, I should say, populated by elves. In this particular world, that means he is a second-class citizen. However, he is also the fourth son of the Emperor. And when the Emperor and his 3 oldest sons and everybody else who could possibly be heir to the throne before Maya all die in an accident, Maya, at 18 years old, unexpectedly becomes the Emperor of the nation and takes the name of Edrahasavar VII. Maya is just a really sweet, awesome guy. Like, he's just super nice. And there is no reason for anyone really to like support him or like him in the book, but he ends up winning them all to his side just by like wanting what's best for them. And being a generally decent guy, it means he also listens to good advice, he learns things he needs to learn, and he ends up being a really, really quality ruler who deals with multiple attempts to depose him, not by bloodshed, but simply by having the allies in his corner that he has won to his side.
Sounds like a real Picard that you've got there, sir. MeganBob, who is your captain?
You know what? I'm going to do it. It's Molly Weasley.
Okay.
Oh, no.
All right. Well, tell us about this captain that you've brought onto the bridge.
Molly Weasley is the matriarch of the Weasley family and has produced numerous children who she has to manage somehow because God knows they need managing. And also has been through 2 wars and kept the majority of her children alive, which is pretty good in that book. Married to Arthur, mother to Ron, basically mother to Harry, and played by Julie Walters, which is very important.
Also, she is a witch and she can do magic. Just throwing that out there.
I love how we're all playing a type on this episode.
Yep. Up and down. I'm personally thinking Molly Weasley is like equal parts Cisco and Janeway in terms of her captaining style. So I think that's a very good choice, Bob. Very good. Claire, who is your captain?
My captain is from a TV show that I've been watching a lot of lately for no reason in particular. It's All Might from My Hero Academia.
Boy, oh boy. Ooh. The bunny-eared, haired Superman analog himself. I mean, I kind of summarized him, but go ahead.
All Might is sort of like the Superman of his universe. He's super strong, super big, durable, all that stuff. One of the most notable things about him, though, is whenever he fights evil and whenever he's making public appearances, he's constantly smiling and he laughs all the time. And he's stated before that the reason for doing that is he wants to make people feel like he could never be defeated, and it's incredibly easy for him whenever he's defeating supervillains, even when it's not, because he wants people to basically believe that evil will never win. He realizes that his place as a superhero, it's important as a position symbolically as it is literally, like by beating villains. And I think that that's a very important quality for a captain to have, to like be able to understand the symbolic role they serve on the ship and to be always very conscious of the face that they present to the crew and to potential enemies or allies that they meet. So yeah, I think he's really good for like the face of the ship.
Yeah, I agree. He's definitely the Kirk out of all of these captains, although thankfully without the womanizing. He's
Kirk on the outside, but he's Picard on the inside. He just pretends to be a Kirk.
Yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right. No, these are all very strong captains for your respective enterprises. The next character slot is the Helm. The captain may be directing the crew of the Enterprise, but it's the Helm that directs the Enterprise herself. The Helm is the one who sets the speed and direction of the ship, as well as operating shields and weapon systems. When the captain calls for evasive maneuvers, it's up to the Helm to make sure that the ship makes it through. It takes reflexes, smarts, and guts to pilot and fight your way through the dangers of the final frontier, traits that the Helm has in spades. MeganBob, who is your Helm?
My Helm is Legolas.
Okay. We should state at this point, one of the aspects of this particular episode is that if your character is from a less advanced setting than Star Trek, they inherently are given the knowledge and skills necessary for them to do their job on a basic level. So Legolas will be able to have the knowledge he needs to pilot this ship. So with that out of the way, Bob, why don't you tell us about this very fine elf lad?
How dare you? The elves could have absolutely gotten to space if they cared about space.
That's a good point. It's a good point.
They just care about the stars. They just want to look at them. They don't want to get
there's no trees
close.
Up there, though.
Yeah, it's disrespectful. You have to keep your distance from the stars and just appreciate them. Okay, elf lore aside. Legolas is an elf from Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. He is an archer. That's mostly what he does. But if you've seen the films, he's also good at parkour and surfing and has very good reflexes. Dan, am I missing anything important about this boy?
I think you nailed it, Bob. Claire, who is your Helm?
Seatbelts, everyone, because at my helm is Miss Frizzle.
Oh, no.
Oh, buddy. All right, Claire, tell us about Miss Frizzle. Take us on an educational journey.
Oh, of course. Miss Frizzle is a eccentric 4th grade teacher who takes her kids on a lot of very unusual field trips via a shape-shifting school bus. She seems to know not only everything about science, but also everything about kind of everything. At the same time, though, she's very lighthearted and very jokey. People have suspected at times that she might be a Time Lord or like a Q or something. We're not really sure, but she's something, and she's a really good driver. She's a good bus driver, and, I imagine that will carry over to spaceship driving. Can't be that different.
Well, I would highly recommend that you also make her your first officer, because if something happens to All Might, she needs to be the captain of the Enterprise. I'm just saying.
That's fair.
All right, Miles, who is your helm?
All right, so at this point I have to ask a quick question.
Uh-huh.
We have protocol for what happens if, somebody takes your character beforehand. Is it okay if my character is directly related to somebody else's character?
Did you also get a Weasley?
Yes.
I mean,
That
I guess
blows my mind.
This is the first time we've dealt with this.
Yeah,
so
well,
sure.
my helm is Ginny Weasley.
All right, tell us about the second Weasley we have on this episode about Star Trek.
Look, she is a fucking great Quidditch player, which tells me that she understands maneuverability, she understands flying, speed. Yeah, know that kind of shit if you're going to play Quidditch. I'm pretty sure she is the best person on a broomstick in that entire series. And beyond that, she's fucking fearless and badass. Ginny does not take any shit. She doesn't care who you are or what you're doing. She doesn't care that you are, say, an asteroid field in front of her. She's just gonna fly right fucking through you. And also, I might add, has magic powers because she is a witch. More than that, Ginny is like what you want in a pilot, I think, which is absolutely without fear and ready to take on any challenge.
Amen.
I mean, if she can handle the emotional black hole that is teenage Harry Potter,
right?
I'm sure she can handle actual literal black holes. So yeah, that's fine.
I have a whole thing about how she's the secret hero of that story. So
makes
you
a
mean
lot
the
of sense.
secret hero?
That's fair.
The third character slot is Security. Also known as the Tactical Officer, this character is directly responsible for the well-being of the Enterprise's personnel when they are directly threatened. Whether on the lookout for stowaways, repelling boarders, or leading away missions on hostile alien worlds, the Security is who you turn to when you don't have a starship bulkhead between you and your enemy. Your Security character should be adept in combat, though that can come from strength, skill, clever battlefield tactics, or something else altogether. Claire, who is your Security?
My Security is Uncle Bob, the T-800 from Terminator 2.
Oh, beautiful. All right, tell us about this weapon of war.
Yeah. Miles?
Yeah.
Shh. This particular T-800 from Terminator 2 was the bodyguard of John Connor while he was being hunted by the T-1000 for a while. And during that time period, it learned a lot about human stuff. So it was not only a killer robot with, the ability to scan stuff with its eyes, which is really good when you're a security officer on a ship, and have all sorts of data of stuff. Also kicks ass and shoots people with guns and is good at kind of every combat thing you could want to be good at. By spending time with John Connor, you also learn to be a little bit more human. It knows now why you cry, but it is something that it can never do.
It's like Worf plus Data. Very good.
Exactly.
Miles, who is your Security?
My Security is Braga from the Rat Queens comic.
Oh, buddy, that's a strong pull. Go ahead and tell us about Braga.
Braga is a transgender orc warrior who was once the prince of an orc nation, but didn't believe in all the stupid macho violence bullshit that was going on there, and left to become a different person, become a different gender, take on a different name, all that good stuff you do when your father disowns you and your brother tries to have you killed so that he can take your place. She is an amazing battle commander. She's an amazing warrior just in general. One of the lines that you're introduced to her with is, and I quote, "You put an arrow through my favorite boob, fuckwit."
MeganBob, who is your Security?
Horse cop. It is Maximus from Tangled.
Oh, bless you for bringing this character back, Bob. I thought we were going to have to wait till the Smash Bash, but no.
Oh, it's so good.
All right.
Yeah, listen to our horse battle if you want to see the first appearance of Horse Cop.
Horse
It's
Cop.
lovely.
For those who
Yes.
did not listen to the Horse Four-Way episode, tell us about Maximus.
Maximus is a beautiful white stallion with hooves of fury. He can track people, so he can do the stealth thing. He can hide behind bushes, probably hide behind various things in the ship. Runs a lot, enforces the law. I mean, stole my heart.
Probably looks real good in a Starfleet uniform.
Oh, so good. Fights people with a sword in his mouth. And you know what you shouldn't use in space is probably guns. So, stabby weapons or frying pans. He's a good boy. That's the point. He's a good horse cop boy.
Very good. The fourth character slot is the engineer. Space is a big place, and you won't always experience technical difficulties while a convenient distance away from a Starfleet docking bay. Sometimes things will go wrong, and you need a fix on the fly. Then again, sometimes you need to push your ship's systems far beyond what they were originally designed to do, regardless of whether or not they have the power. That's where the engineer comes in. The engineer combines scientific knowledge, technological expertise, and mind-bending creativity, using inverted tachyon pulses and technobabble to do the impossible. Miles, who is your engineer?
I'll tell you, Bob and I are on the same page when it comes to source material for this episode. My engineer is Merlin from The Sword and the Stone.
Oh,
Yay!
there it is. Merlin is an inspired choice. Why don't you tell the audience about why?
I have to thank Sharon for this idea because I was really struggling to come up with an engineer that fit my theme of all fantasy characters in this sci-fi setting. But Sharon came up with a great idea. So Merlin is the wizard who trains King Arthur in Disney's The Sword and the Stone. I think that he's a good engineer for a number of reasons. The first and foremost being he's a crotchety old man, which I think is pretty important when you're a Star Trek engineer. I feel like other Star Trek engineers are diminished for not being crotchety old men, like Ginny, but more prominently has magic powers. His creativity definitely demonstrated in his shape-shifting duel with Madame Mim. And of course, Merlin has been to the future and can, I guess, time travel and knows all kinds of shit. It's really not entirely clear what the breadth of his knowledge is, but I'm going to just go ahead and say it's everything. He knows everything.
That's very convenient. MeganBob, who is your engineer?
My engineer is Q from James Bond.
Okay.
All right. Oh, that's fantastic.
Between Miss Frizzle and Merlin, we've had a lot of near Qs in terms of power. Let's hear about someone with an identical name.
I am drawing on just the meta Q that inhabits all the James Bond films, which is basically a guy who takes things and says, I know it looks like a pen, but it's actually a blowgun or something like that. I know it looks like a watch, but it's actually a bomb. That is just the kind of thing that Q does, is take innocent objects and make them murdery.
An inventive weapons designer whose specialty is in making weapons look like they're not weapons. Yeah, I am delighted at thinking about what sorts of things he's going to do on the Enterprise. Claire, who is your engineer?
Oh, I'm doing the exact opposite. My engineer takes things that look like weapons and makes them non-lethal, because my engineer is Dr. Heller from Mystery Men.
I'm glad we finally got Tom Waits on this show.
It's about time.
All right, tell us about Dr. Heller.
So not only does he specialize in designing weapons, he also does aromatherapy, laser hair removal, carnival rides, and chicken rentals.
Nice.
He lives in an abandoned carnival. He designs weapons for superheroes, but, he is a pacifist, so all of his weapons are non-lethal. He has created an electronuclear magnet, a canned tornado, a blame thrower, and a shrinker gun. He's a weird, eccentric old man who's incredibly smart, and his weapons, despite being very safe and non-lethal, are also very effective at accomplishing his goals.
I love it. Very in keeping with the Federation. The fifth character slot is the medic. This character runs the Enterprise's sickbay and infirmary, meaning that they are responsible for putting their fellow crew members back together again when phasers, diseases, and Vulcan Pon Farr threaten to end the mission prematurely. Any character efficient at healing others, through science and surgery or through other means, can take up a position as the chief medical officer. MeganBob, who is your medic?
Night nurse.
Nice.
Ooh.
Right on.
Which version of Night Nurse? Because Night Nurse has appeared in a couple of versions of Marvel.
I am only familiar with Night Nurse as played by Rosario Dawson.
Okay,
that
so
is the correct answer, by the way.
the Claire version from the Marvel Netflix shows, not
Yes.
present company Claire.
I am not Night Nurse.
Yeah.
That you know of.
If you are, you have to tell us.
All right, Bob, tell us about the MCU Netflix version of Night Nurse.
Night Nurse is a nurse who works the night shift. But more than that, she is a nurse what heals superheroes who come in all battered and go, no, I don't want to go to the hospital. To go, you're a fucking idiot. No, I don't want to go. And you're like, fine, I'll heal you, but you're a fucking idiot.
I do think it's very appropriate that in the series she ends up having a relationship with Luke Cage, who is basically invincible. She's just like, you're the one person I don't need to worry about.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Claire, who is your medic?
Okay, so I actually almost did take a character from Tangled in that Rapunzel has healing hair, and I thought it would be funny.
Right.
Yeah.
But I, in the end, decided to go with that time-honored repository of non-boring clerics that is Overwatch, and I went with Lucio.
Ooh, okay. Well, you've avoided reusing a character that's already been used in Surprise Party. We've taken Overwatch characters before, but never Lucio. Tell us about him.
So yeah, Lucio is a musician, celebrity, activist character from Overwatch who's also sort of like a rebel. And he fights against a somewhat corrupt corporation called Vishkar that's moving into his home country of Brazil. He has a high-tech suit that has a gun that shoots sound, and he also has these like laser rollerblades that let him skate along walls and stuff like that. He's like a super positive, upbeat dude. He can use sound as a weapon. He also can heal people with sound. Like healing sound comes out of speakers on him that heals people around him. So that's probably how he's going to heal people on the Enterprise, is just hang out with them and blast some healing music.
I love it. Miles, who is your medic?
My medic is Piffany from the Nodwick comics.
All right, well,
They're just making stuff up.
I was with you with Rat Queens and with Merlin. That one just lost me. Tell us about this character.
All right, so if any of you ever read Dragon Magazine back in the day, you may have encountered a comic strip called Nodwick. Nodwick was the name of the henchman of an adventuring party who frequently abused him and, made him carry all kinds of stuff and left him to die and all kinds of great stuff. It's a very good comic. Piffany is the cleric of the party, and she is adorable and super nice. A large part of the conflict in the comic stems from the other members of the party attempting to conceal from her the quote-unquote not nice things they are doing. She is also the key person in charge of putting them back together when they are broken, especially Nodwick, which she does with the aid of magical duct tape of healing.
Oh, interesting.
And also she's got a magical staff. Usually she's just focused on like community service and like donuts and doing nice things for people. But she's got some serious divine power behind her when she wants to use it. And also duct tape.
Always helpful to have on a starship, for sure. And dust off your red shirts for the 6th and final character slot, the Dumpus. This character's parent must have pulled some major strings to get them through Starfleet Academy because they are not what anyone would consider to be an asset to a crew. Let's hope they confine their activities to the holodeck, because allowing them anywhere near the bridge is just asking to end your 5-year mission early, probably by falling into a black hole. As always, the players will not be choosing their own Dumpus, but will be assigning a Dumpus to another player. Claire, who is Miles's Dumpus?
All right, Miles, your Dumpus is the Todd from Scrubs.
The second Scrubs supporting character swings in as the Dumpus.
Yep.
Oh, the Todd!
Tell us about the Todd.
Okay, so the Todd is a
Let me go
surgeon.
put on my banana hammock.
Nice.
The Todd is a surgeon who is incredibly macho and sex crazy and loves making really inappropriate double entendres, wears a banana hammock and nothing else sometimes, likes giving high fives, hits on every woman in sight, and then people start to suspect that he might actually be bisexual, so they kind of get him in touch with his bisexuality as a way of like maybe hoping to soften him, but it just gives him twice as many people to be gross to and hit on after that. So there's really no fixing the Todd. He's just kind of the worst.
I like to double her entendre.
Indeed.
Yeah.
All right, Miles, who is MeganBob's Dumpus?
MeganBob's Dumpus is Sir Robin from Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Brave Sir Robin?
That's the one.
Tell us about Sir Robin.
Good.
Sir Robin was not afraid to die, not at all afraid to be killed in ghastly ways. Actually, he's very afraid of all these things because Sir Robin is afraid of everything. He nearly engages in a lot of fights before running away, and then when he runs away, his minstrels sing songs at him about how he's just run away. He is utterly useless in every way and is the single most pathetic creature to ever sit on the round table.
Terrific. MeganBob, who is Claire's Dumpus?
Claire's Dumpus is Mr. Poe from a series of unfortunate events.
Oh, that's great.
Low. Oh, man.
That's so great.
All right. Tell us about Mr. Poe.
Mr. Poe has a habit of coughing annoyingly and then delivering obvious information that you don't really need in a rude way that upsets other people. On top of that, he is able to be fooled by a drawn-on mustache. And being told that your name is Jessica Haircut.
He is an immensely incompetent banker. What a drain on the Enterprise's resources that guy's gonna be. All right, everyone now has a party of 6 characters, but before you energize the transporters, we are going to play a quick round of musical chairs. Each of you, please roll a d6.
Oh, no.
Damn, I hate this part. I hate it so much.
Oh.
All right.
No!
All right, Miles, what do you got?
I have rolled a 3.
MeganBob?
I rolled a 3.
And Claire.
Oh, I'm passing to MeganBob, right? I think I'm happy with this then, because I got a 2.
Okay, so Miles will be giving Braga to Claire. MeganBob will be giving Maximus to Miles.
Miles, you have to treat him well.
I will give him many apples, Bob.
Okay.
But I have some good news for you, MeganBob, because Claire will be giving Miss Frizzle to you.
Okay.
So-
That makes it slightly better.
Hey, I still have an all fantasy character team. Sweet.
Perfect.
Yeah, including the Todd.
He lives
know
in his
what?
own fantasy
He
world.
lives
for
in
sure.
somebody's fantasy.
All right. Players, please introduce the bridge crew of each of your respective enterprises, starting with Miles.
All right, we have Captain Maya Drajar from the Goblin Emperor. At the helm, Ginny Weasley, obviously. At Tactical, we thought we had somebody for it. You know what? The interview went really well, but it didn't work out in the end, and we ended up hiring a horse cop.
Yay!
So at Tactical, we have Maximus from Tangled, who will get along probably quite well with our engineer, who is Merlin from The Sword and the Stone, to the extent that he gets along with anyone. In Sickbay, we've got Epiphany from the Nodwick comics. And finally, gonna go ahead and say that he's a science officer? Yeah.
I like that you're not putting him in medical.
You know what? He's wearing a blue shirt when he wears a shirt at all. It's the Todd.
Great. MeganBob, how about you?
I have Molly Weasley as my captain, Legolas at the helm. Miss Frizzle's doing security now. I bet she's got some real guns under those long sleeves.
Oh, yeah. I pity anyone who tries to come on the Enterprise with her at security.
In engineering is Q from James Bond, and then my medic is Night Nurse. And Sir Robin is probably hiding somewhere.
Claire, let's hear your crew.
All right, sitting in the big old chair is my captain, who is All Might. At the helm, I guess we have Braga now? Standing at the back of the bridge with his arms folded and what might be a bandolier, I'm not sure exactly what that thing is across his chest, is the T-800, aka Uncle Bob. Down in engineering, where it's nice and dark and he can be weird with all of his chickens, is Dr. Heller. And over in medical, blasting his tunes, is Lucio. Oh, and of course, wearing, I guess, a red 3-piece suit, hopefully not very long for this world, is Mr. Poe.
Oh, I'm sure he won't be very long for this world. He's got some kind of space flu for sure. Ensign, set course for surprise party. Maximum warp. Chapter 1, Arena. The goal of the Federation may be to establish peace and cooperation throughout the galaxy, but there are plenty of aliens out there who aren't interested in kumbayaing along. You are reminded of this fact when your ship comes across a Federation outpost which has been destroyed in an unprovoked attack by a ship belonging to the reptilian aliens known as the Gorn. The Enterprise pursues the Gorn until, unexpectedly, both ships are brought to a sudden halt. It appears as though your scuffle has attracted the attention of the mysterious and seemingly omnipotent Metrons, who have decided that one member of your crew will go up against one of the Gorns in single combat. Before you can object, your crew member is transported to the surface of a primitive alien world, and their only company is a vicious alien reptile out for blood. Miles, which character are you choosing to face the Gorn in a trial by combat, and how do they overcome their foe in this savage setting?
We're going to go with Ginny Weasley in this one.
No hesitation. All right, I like it.
As previously mentioned, she is definitively nothing to fuck with. And also, she has a magic wand, which can be used to cast spells on the Gorn to petrify them, or knock them unconscious, or tie them up, or levitate them, or do any number of things that the Gorn is simply not going to be prepared for. And beyond that, the Gorn is going to, like, cower before her. There's nothing creative going on here necessarily in terms of, like, approach. It's going to be head on. Ginny is going to walk into the fight without fear and walk out with the helpless, befuddled, probably unconscious Gorn at her feet.
MeganBob, which character do you pick, and how do they deal with this?
I think it's going to be Q from James Bond.
Ooh, bold. Tell me how this happens.
So he lands opposite this big alien. He adjusts his tie pin, and out of it comes pheromones. And so this giant reptile's like, oh, this is kind of sexy. And then he adjusts his cufflinks, and out of them fall reptile treats. And the reptile's like, oh, this is sexy and delicious. And then he gets a shoehorn out of his pocket, and it's a gun, and he shoots it. And then it drops dead after it's been placated. But it spent its last few seconds on this earth very happy.
Hungry and horny, apparently.
Wow.
Is that not the definition of happiness, I ask you?
What I love about that is the Metrons normally would, like, transport you and, like, leave your weapons behind, but I love the idea that they did not recognize anything that Q had as a weapon. I think that's perfect. All right, Claire, how about you?
So the Metrons have selected the person in my party who they assume is going to be the most savage, and that is, of course, Braga.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Braga and the Gorn end up in this little arena fighting each other. Braga soon realizes this Gorn thing is not really much of a threat. It's kind of slow. It throws very light rocks at her, when she's like steps out of the way. And she's like, I could kick this thing's ass, but there's really no sport in this. And then so she starts talking to him. She's like, let's chat. How'd you end up here? This clearly isn't where you wanted to be. This is a bad situation, right? I think we know who the real assholes are. It's these Metron guys. It's society. They forced you into this to be a savage, but you're not a savage. You could be better. How about you and I set aside our differences, rise up, and throw these very light styrofoam rocks at them? And then they do just that. And they slaughter all of the Metrons. And at the end, the Gorn gets brought on board the ship and, becomes Braga's new bud.
I think that is perfectly in character.
Oh, that's very good. You guys are not making this easy for me straight off the bat. Chapter 2, Space Seed. One of these days, you'll learn to stop poking your nose into unexplored parts of the galaxy. Sadly, today is not that day. The Enterprise came upon a centuries-old derelict ship, the SS Botany Bay, and found it filled with dozens of humans in suspended animation. You revive the leader and learn that his name is Khan Noonien Singh, who led a group of genetically superior humans in a war of conquest in Earth's past. But it looks like old habits die hard, because it's not long before Khan and his followers take over the ship and hold the crew hostage. Only one of your crew members has escaped Khan's clutches, and it's up to them to get out of the situation. MeganBob, you're up first this time. Who is going to free the Enterprise from Khan and his followers, and how do they do it?
Rising to this task, to the surprise of everyone, most especially himself, is Sir Robin. Now, the issue is that Sir Robin is going to run away from this issue.
I mean, that's probably how he escaped Khan in the first place.
Oh, absolutely. The problem is that he has minstrels. And so as he runs, there is a song pursuing him and, a band of minstrels sort of doing what can charitably be called a dance in his wake. There's a thing about Khan that you don't know. He fucking hates lutes. And so he is going to hear this music and go, somebody's loose, and also fuck lutes. I remember lutes from the past and they sucked then. They suck even more now in space. God damn you, cheap old instruments of the olden days. And so he is going to mercilessly pursue Sir Robin and his minstrels all over the ship, and Sir Robin's going to be running into one door and then out another, and Khan's going to be going into that door following him, and then they're both going to come out the same door, and then they're going to be facing each other and go back in the door. And amidst all of this loot-based tomfoolery, the other members of the crew will rise up and take the ship back. And then Khan's going to be like, damn it, I should have really worked on my loot rage.
Oh, raspberries. Khan's famous catchphrase. Claire, it's your go.
The one I'm going with is the one member of the crew who was missed during the roundup because he was down in a weird dark corner of engineering, and that is Dr. Heller. So Dr. Heller climbs out. He grabs his shrink ray off the wall, which specifically, if you are not aware, shrinks fabric only because it is made with dry cleaning technology. He's able to get around through the halls, making everybody's clothes shrink as his way to get to the transporter. Once he gets there with one of his trusty chickens, he sets it on one of the little transporter pads and fiddles with the dials, unplugs some wires and replugs them in the wrong ways and cranks up the power really high. And the transporter malfunctions, in quotes, and starts creating a huge number of chickens. Just like cloning them using the transporter. And then he kind of sends them all up into the vents and directs the airflow to make a ton of chickens fall down on top of Khan and his crew. He then comes into the room, and Khan has stolen all of the phasers from the crew on his ship. They start shooting them at Heller, except Heller modified all of the phasers to be non-lethal. So all of their stolen phasers are actually now just laser hair removal. So the only bad thing that happens to Heller is that all of the hair gets removed off of his body. But then he's able to get up close to Khan and zap his vest with his shrink ray and make it so tight that he can't breathe anymore. That's how Heller does it.
That is how Heller does it. Very good. Miles, let's hear it.
So when you're dealing with Khan Noonien Singh, there's one thing that you really need more than anything else, and that's confidence. And nobody projects confidence like the Todd.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
I really admire you guys using your dumpuses against Khan. That's very bold.
Look, I don't know if you've seen... actually, I do know the answer to this question. Allow me to rephrase it as a statement. You've seen Ricardo Montalban's pecs.
True.
We've all seen them. They're glorious. I feel like Khan and the crew of the Botany Bay, being genetically engineered superhumans, could potentially, relate to someone like the Todd. And the Todd, while he may be, a douchebag bro, is not, a total idiot, all right? And he loves making friends with people. So when the crew of the Botany Bay originally takes over the Enterprise, they don't even bother with the Todd. They don't bother knocking him out or whatever. They just, they figure he's not going to be a problem. But the Todd starts to talk to them, and as they start talking more about their backstory, he's like, "Oh, you're products of selective breeding? I like to selectively breed." They'll talk about how they were trapped in suspended animation, and the Todd shocks everybody by saying, "The Todd's animation is never suspended." And they're like, "What?" They become friends, they start to bond via, their bro, tendencies. The Todd is like, you know what? Got some superhuman genetics too, right down here, if you know what I mean.
Yeah!
And so, basically, the Todd begins to party with the crew of the Botany Bay. Gets them just, wasted fucking drunk, right? Until the last one left standing is Khan himself, at which point Khan's feeling good, all his men are happy, the Todd is feeling good about himself, looks over at Khan, holds up his hand and just says, "Double Agent 5!" and smacks him in the face.
Oh, nice.
Knocks him unconscious because, the Todd, his workout reps are mad legit, bro. He's got those sweet gains, if you know what I'm saying. That one high five, perfectly placed with a surgeon's precision in the center of the forehead, knocks him right out, and the Todd retakes the ship.
That's very powerful. Very good. Chapter 3, This Side of Paradise. Your ship arrives at Omicron Ceti 3, where a Federation colony had been established years earlier. You expect to find a world of corpses, as the world has been dosed with lethal radiation, but miraculously you find the colonists alive and well. It turns out that some of the planet's flora emit spore clouds that not only protect the colonists from the radiation, but also provide them with a profound peace of mind. Unfortunately, that peace of mind means that anyone who comes to this planet never wants to leave, and many of your crew have been infected. Claire, it is your turn first. One of your characters has been infected with the spores and is now able to do something that they've always wanted to do, but have never really allowed themselves to do before. A second character, who has resisted the effects of the spores, has taken it upon themselves to knock some sense into the first character. What is the first character doing under the influence of the spores, and what does the second character do to get them back onto the ship?
I think the member of my team who is going to end up on the planet is the T-800. he spends some time there, and the more time that he spends sort of overwhelmed, because he has organic parts of his body, the exterior parts of it, the more time he spends around the spores, the more sort of overactive all of his various hormones get, and his sort of meaty parts get a little bit louder in his head, and all of his machine parts and his logic gets a little bit quieter. And after a while, his robot scanning everything all the time vision just shuts off too, and he just starts seeing the world. He's out on a hilltop one day, just looking out at a sunset, and then looking at it, he just starts crying.
He can finally cry.
So, of course, when it's time to leave, the T-800 doesn't want to leave because he finally feels connected to this humanity that he always felt apart from. And he knows if he leaves, then these spores won't be in his body anymore, and he's just going to be a machine again, and he won't be able to feel these things anymore. The one who comes to talk to him is All Might. Who basically puts a hand on his shoulder, and he listens to him when he tells him about what they have to do. And All Might tells him basically hey, if you want to stay here, that's fine. We don't want to force you into this, but we have a lot of important work to do out there in the galaxy. And now that you feel connected to humanity in this way, I want you to ask yourself what you think is really right. Some people just live their life for themselves, and that's fine. But you can also sacrifice. You can become a symbol for people. And it doesn't matter what you feel on the outside. It matters what you show to the world. Now you know what it's like to be happy. You can project being happy and help people and, save lives. You're not going to be as happy as you are here, but the galaxy will be a better place. And in the end, the T-800 agrees. He gets back on the ship with them. And even though he eventually loses his connection to his emotions once again, he does it on his own terms and knows that he's serving a greater good.
It's an emotional flowers for Algernon is what that is.
Yep.
Miles, you're next. Which two characters are you going with?
There's two things that Epiphany from Nodwick has always wanted to do. The first one is because she's a little repressed. Actually, repression is her middle name. So she's always wanted to drop the control, stop worrying so much. Deep down inside, she wants to stop worrying about the consequences of her actions, stop worrying about whether or not she's nice, and actually just go whole hog, man. Just let it loose. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about farts, at least not just farts. But the other thing that Epiphany has always wanted to do is cast arcane magic instead of just divine magic. In the actual episode, the spores rebuild someone's removed appendix. Yeah. So I think they are powerful enough to be able to enhance the parts of the brain and gives Epiphany the ability to actually cast arcane spells, which she suddenly knows as if they were burned into her mind, all of them. Between the ability to cast arcane spells and her sudden desire to revel and to indulge in meanness and power, which she's never done before, it starts to become a problem. The crew notices that she's not herself, especially Merlin. What the hell are you doing? Stop that right now. You don't have the experience to be dealing with that kind of magic. Only I can deal with that kind of magic. Where's your duct tape? Just put it around your mouth or something so you don't say any more spells. But she's not listening to him. Starts casting some fucking fireballs in his direction like you do, all kinds of combat magic, evocation, that kind of shit. Merlin is eventually oh, you think you're so great, do you? Well, let me tell you, there is nothing that you can do that I can't do better. I'll tell you that right now. And if I choose to do something with my magic, I guarantee you cannot duplicate that effect. And Epiphany is all right, old man, you're on, which is something she would not normally say, but she's infested with spores. They basically start playing the Madam Mim game where because Epiphany can shapeshift now, can polymorph now.
They start having a wizard's duel.
They start having a wizard's duel with the whole shape-shifting deal. Merlin is oh, I'm an elephant. Epiphany's well, I can be an elephant, and keeps trying to trump each other, right? It's not I'm an elephant, I'm an elephant. It's I'm an elephant, I'm a bigger elephant, or whatever. You know what I mean? You know how the game is played. It's the ancient game. The game has always been there. So finally, in the end, Merlin casts a spell on himself and is I am the spores of this planet, and transforms himself into them, right? And Epiphany's well, fuck you, I'm a toxic cloud in which these spores can't live, and turns herself into that. And all of a sudden, the spores are all dead, and she's fine.
Oh. Wow. Brilliant, sir. Brilliant. MeganBob, I expect nothing less than perfection.
It is Legolas who falls to the spores. He doesn't really notice it at first, and then he suddenly feels that he doesn't feel that pull to go to the west. And he also doesn't feel that weird weight of having lived so long and seeing so many civilizations and people rise and fall, and knowing that ultimately everything is very temporary and the only thing that will still be there is his people. And then even his people aren't there anymore now. He feels peace for the first time in a very long time, maybe since he was a child. And that's tempting. He thinks, I could stay here. I could have this life. Molly Weasley comes up to him and says, like, let's get back on the ship. He's like, I don't want to get back on the ship. I want to have this feeling. She looks at him and says, we don't get to walk away from our responsibilities, and we don't get to walk away from the things we've lost. And in that moment, he sort of sees his father's face, and he sees the faces of all the fellowship and all the people he's known over the course of his very long life. And he feels that weight resettle on his shoulders, and he gets back on the ship. And he knows that it's the right thing to do, the thing he has to do, and that he's choosing to walk away from this because there's something more important than just feeling free from that.
Wow. Very good.
That's my sad fucking Lord of the Rings pick.
Chapter 4. Trouble with Tribbles. You're not really sure how all this happened. After a tense encounter with some Klingons at Deep Space Station K7, you were prepared to be on your way and put this whole situation behind you, but it looks like someone on your crew made an unwise purchase during shore leave. They acquired a single Tribble, a small purring puffball of an alien creature. It's unquestionably adorable, but it's also able to reproduce at an astoundingly fast rate, and now your ship is packed to the brim with these little things. They've covered control panels, gotten into storage compartments and ventilation ducts. They even show up in some of the replicated Neels. Something has to be done with these things. Miles, which character has the brilliant solution to deal with these Tribbles, and what is it?
I think the person to handle the Tribbles is Maya Drajar, the Emperor Edrahasvar VII.
Captain's finally stepping forward. All right.
Yeah, it's his time, because, like, you know what? You're not wrong, this is a problem, but, like, these are sentient life forms. Surely there's some way we can communicate with them and figure out, like, what is happening and how we can stop it. So Maya decides that the best tactic is to negotiate with the Tribbles. He is the captain, but he definitely has some technical know-how. Not as much as the engineer, but a little bit. He's got enough of it that he can manipulate the universal translator just well enough to get, like, a semblance of communication. And once he does, there's still a language barrier, but his supreme niceness is enough to overcome it. It's impossible to recognize that Maya just wants to help and just wants what's best for you. Once he begins this dialogue, it takes a little while, and yes, the Tribbles are breeding the entire time. But the first thing that he manages to negotiate out of the Tribbles is an end to the breeding. That's step one. Let's take the breeding off the table, and then we'll talk about next steps. At least that takes the ship out of immediate danger. And what he ultimately realizes is that the Tribbles, all they really want is a planet of their own, to be left alone, free, to breed to their heart's content. So Maya talks to the Federation. He makes political outreaches. Like, once the Tribbles are done breeding, the immediate danger is solved. So we can take a few months and, like, actually involve various factions in the negotiation, come to an agreement as to an uninhabited planet where the Tribbles won't fuck with the biome too much, you know what I mean? That becomes the home of this new Tribble society, which is now recognized by the Federation. So Maya, in taking a non-violent negotiating approach, has made contact with an alien life form and once again expanded the United Federation of Planets' influence over the galaxy and brought another sentient life form into the midst, adding in a similar but slower way to the Borg, adding their collective knowledge and culture to our own, and really making the entire universe better as a result.
You guys think the Borg ever assimilated some Tribbles? Because that would be quite a thing. Anyway, good job, Miles. MeganBob, your turn.
It's Night Nurse. And Night Nurse's first response is just to go, I'm so tired. Can't I just have some goddamn peace and quiet? And then there's Tribbles all over her paperwork. She's like, okay, fine. I can't have some goddamn peace and quiet. All right. She has studied a fair amount of biology and so is going to lower the temperature of the ship because obviously animals like to go to sleep whenever they're cold. Animals, I mean, yeah, they might also fuck when they're cold, but not as much. Mostly it's time for night-nights. And so lower the temperature of the ship and all these drowsy tribbles everywhere. Collect them and one by one is going to spay and neuter every single tribble on this ship. And is going to be sighing the entire time going, how did I get involved in this? How is this the career path that I have? How many times can I perform this surgery before my eyes cross and I never come out of this state that I'm in? But, every single patient comes through fine and just a stack of tribbles. There's not enough room on the operating tables or any of the recovery beds. She got a cubby that you put shoes and stuff in, and so it's just full of tribbles. But what she does now have is she has a ship full of service animals.
Oh, man.
So everybody on the entire ship now gets their own tribble. And everybody has like little collars for their tribble. Some of them have spikes. Some of them have ribbon. Some of them have a little bell. Not a real reason why you'd need to put a bell on a tribble, but just in case you wanted to know where it was. And so everybody just carries around their tribble with them, or their tribble stays as a pillow warmer, or just a purr to wake you up in the morning and remind you, hey, you know what would be really nice if you fed me? And so everybody's mood on the Enterprise is a lot better now. Night Nurse is still really tired from this, but she has her own emotional support tribble now. And it doesn't make the paperwork go away, but it makes it a little better.
And somewhere Bob Barker sheds a tear. That's beautiful. And Claire, let's hear what you're going with.
So I think the perfect person to solve this problem is Lucio, and he is going to solve it by going undercover. For those of you who do not know, in Overwatch, Lucio sometimes wears a big frog head that's sort of like one of the Deadmau5 or Daft Punk heads when he's doing his DJ thing. So he's going to take one of those and then just cover it in tribble fur. And he's going to unveil his new identity to the tribbles as DJ Tribbleclef.
Oh my God.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and so he's gonna start off by saying yeah, you guys all like breeding? Woo! And so he's gonna play a lot of very sexy R&B music and be yeah, get it on, and act like he's encouraging them just to win them over. And they're oh, this guy's cool, he can hang. And then he's hey, let's do other stuff. We've been breeding for a while. That was fun, right? Yeah, now let's not breed. And switch to let's just dance and play some upbeat pop, and they follow him around. It does take a while to convince them. He does kind of go undercover for a little bit. He starts teaching them how to make their hair into dreadlocks, and then he also gives them little outfits. They get little laser skates of their own so they can skate along with him when he's dancing.
Aww.
And he has little dance parties with them in the shuttle bay for a while where he has disco lights. It takes a few weeks of really getting their trust. But then at just the right moment, all the tribbles are gathered together. He's okay, now everybody get into a line. Now everybody get into whatever. And he's now everybody get into a cone pointed right at me. And then he pulls his sound blaster out from behind. He gives them his most patented move, which is the boop, a sound blast that knocks people back. It can be used to knock people off cliffs and stuff in the game. And he uses it to knock all of the tribbles into the back of a shuttle, which he then shuts. Once they are all trapped in the back of the shuttle, he sends the shuttle to an uninhabited planet where they can live in peace. And he also has a little boombox set up that will play some music that will exist to help keep their population under control. It is, of course, the least sexy music of all time, that being nu metal.
I mean, I don't know. I could probably think of some less sexy music than nu metal.
That was an adorable story, Claire, and I thank you for that.
We're doing the Star Trek episode. Have you heard that man sing?
Oh, that's true.
That's true.
I take it all back. It is spoken word William Shatner.
That's right.
Chapter 5, The Wrath of Khan. Turns out you can't keep a good genetically engineered Superman down. Khan Noonien Singh has returned and is out for revenge on you and your crew. Khan isn't used to starship combat, however, and after a difficult battle, the Enterprise manages to prevail. However, your warp core is damaged in the process and is threatening to blow. Repairing the core won't be difficult, but anyone who attempts to do so will be taking a fatal dose of radiation in the process. MeganBob, we are starting with you. Tell me who decides to sacrifice themselves to save the Enterprise, and what inspiring words they whisper to the rest of the crew in their final moments.
All right. Well, there's the only choice, but also I think the obvious choice. It is Miss Frizzle.
Some education is coming at us in the last minute.
Absolutely. Miss Frizzle goes to do this. She looks the entire crew in the eye, says, "Don't be afraid to get messy and make mistakes." And the crew all nods solemnly because, you know what? Don't be afraid to get messy and make mistakes. And she goes down and she replaces the warp core. And you can see she's getting a little glowy, a little weird. And then it seems like she dies. And then regeneration! And I am not going to tell you who the next Miss Frizzle is. I will leave that to y'all to cast.
Oh my God, yes. Please let it be David Tennant. Please let it be David Tennant.
He would look very lovely in a dress.
I think so.
And in a frizzy red wig.
Frizzy red wigs are cool.
I like it. All right, Claire, it's your turn.
It's very clear that the person who has to go in to save the day is a guy who was probably on death's door anyway, and that's Mr. Poe. So he turns to the glass to see one of his crewmen on the other side and says, "I'm sorry, but I have to inform you of a terribly, terribly unfortunate event. I have been irradiated. Irradiated in this case means being dosed with a high level of radiation, such that I'm now experiencing organ failure. But as we all know, the needs of the money outweigh the needs of the banker.
Oh, boy.
I have been and always will be," and he puts a hand on the glass, "your banker." And then we see another hand on the other side of the glass, and it's the Gorn.
Not a dry eye in the house.
Yep.
All right, Miles, who's stepping up to this challenge?
Bob. I'm so sorry. It's my only character I have
Miles,
left,
you monster. How could you do this? I think that Bob's dramatic yell of Dan may have been prophetic, because...
That's right.
Yeah, that's true. So, when radiation is leaking out, when the warp core is failing, there's only one horse for the job. Horse cop!
Yeah.
Maximus goes into the chamber with a determined look on his horsey face. He has used his fine horse investigation skills to determine that this is the only option. And of course, when Maximus commits to a course of action, he's not turning back. There will be no taking him off his course. So that hoof comes down. The thing seals as everybody looks on sadly with their hands pressed against the glass. And he's got a hoof up as well. And as the radiation fills up, he gives out a defiant, horsey whinny.
Aww.
And then, with his last, not actually words, shoots his crewmates a glance that says, without any miscommunication, "Do not fuck this up."
What a downer.
And then they turn him into space glue!
No, Miles, you almost had it. Oh. Chapter 6, Generations. It's been a long road, getting from there to here. But your 5-year mission is just about at an end. Your final mission takes you in pursuit of the villainous Dr. Tolian Soren, whose obsession with time and death has led him to destroy multiple star systems in an attempt to break the flow of time and achieve immortality. Your struggles against him push your crew and your ship to their limit, but in the end, it's not enough. Soren obliterates one final star and is transported into a timeless dimension. What he didn't anticipate was that your characters would be taken along for the ride. Your characters now have the ability to use this dimension to travel back to before Soren's final experiment occurred and prevent all of this from happening. However, it's clear that your crew doesn't have the ability to take on this threat by themselves. They're going to have to reach into the time stream and find a hero from the past to help. Claire, choose a character that you have used in a previous episode of Surprise Party and tell me how they defeat the villainous Dr. Soren before he can achieve immortality.
All right, I think it is time for me to reach back into the past and take another seasoned space hero who is, without a doubt, my most OP character I've used so far, and that is Bugs Bunny. So Soren is getting ready to launch the missile when suddenly Bugs Bunny comes up in drag, of course, like an Uhura-style outfit, like a really short skirt, and he has the little earpiece thing in one of his little rabbit ears. And he's like, oh, who's this handsome young man? Soren's like, begone, I am going to destroy the star so I can go into the Nexus. I will be free of space and time. I'll be able to live forever. He's like, oh, why would you want to live forever? You're already so young and handsome. And at this point in time, Soren sees through the disguise and he yanks off the costume. And then he says, you can't stop me. I'm going to blow up that star. And he's about to press the button. And then he realizes that the missile has been turned around to face him. And then he turns it back around to face the star. And he's about to press the button again. And then he notices it's turned around to face him again. He turns around to do the star a couple more times like, all right, that's enough. And he finally ties up Bugs Bunny and says, I'm going to blow up this star, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. He says, oh, please don't blow up the star. Please, please, oh, please don't do it. I'm going to do it. Please don't do it. I'm going to do it. Oh, please don't do it. I'm going to do it. Please blow up the star. Please, 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 will you blow up the star? I'm not going to blow up that star, and nothing you do can make me do it. And then he points the missile out into the vastness of space and fires it, and it just flies out into space and explodes harmlessly. And he's like, no!
So good.
I think you're right. I think Bugs is the most OP character you've brought in. Miles, it's your turn, so make it good.
I wouldn't be staying true to my aesthetic for this match if I didn't bring in a fantasy character.
Of course. Jeez.
And in this case, Soren is about to deploy the missile, and suddenly he hears a voice behind him yell, stop! He sees a man walk toward him, and it is the Marquis de Carabas from Neverwhere. The Marquis approaches Soren, who's like curiously looking on. And then when he realizes who it is, he's like, you! And the Marquis smiles and he's like, you've owed me a favor for many years now, my friend. And now I'm calling it in. And Soren is like, to hell with your favors. That was a long time ago. I don't care what I owe you. Nothing will stop me from seeing my family again. I'm going into the Nexus. And the Marquis' smile widens and he says, I wasn't talking to you. And as we all know, the Marquis has a relationship with rats. And there's a little space rat here on this planet that is also, he and his family have also owed the Marquis a favor for a long time. And Soren turns back to his launcher and realizes that suddenly it is covered in explosives that the rats have brought on and attached to it. And he goes, and the Marquis walks away, generally happy that he's saved the universe, but still, he would have liked that favor. That would have been nice.
That's very good. And MeganBob, tell me who is pulled from the past and how they defeat Soren.
The asset.
Ooh, of course. Sexy fish man from Shape of Water.
I mean, I don't want to brag, guys, but I do have a brand.
Uh-huh.
The asset wanders over to him and just sort of makes a weird little trill sound. And Soren understands this to mean, why are you doing this particularly? He's like, well, I mean, the Borg killed my family, and I want to go to the Nexus where everything doesn't hurt anymore. The asset sort of makes more thoughtful trilling noises as it digests this, because, you know, that's a lot of information to take in, and then sort of hunkers down a little bit. Normally, it would go underwater for this thinking part, but that is not an option on this very dry planet. So it's having to hunker instead, and then sort of unhunkers. Makes a trill of, that's reasonable, but I've been taken from all of my things too, and what if instead of trying to recapture the past, we tried to build a future together?
There's a lot of subtext in that one trill.
It's a very sonorous trill. You really feel it. It comes from the groin. You will not be surprised to learn. It's very groin-based trilling. But Soren's very receptive to this groin-based trilling. And goes,
What a sentence.
do you think I don't have a future? And the asset looks out to the stars and said, I didn't used to think that I had a future either. Trill, trill, groin, groin. And Soren very cautiously walks to stand beside the asset. And then you see the shot sort of pan down to their hands, and you can just barely see Soren like reach his pinky finger to brush against the asset's clawed and now slightly, drying out in this desert landscape hand. And the asset takes his hand and nods, and they get on a ship and they go to find a sexy water planet.
Bob solving her problems with seduction? What?
What?
I hadn't done it yet on this one. I felt like I really had to, because I mean, he just wants to be happy, guys.
Yeah.
Is he a bad person?
He is now.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Who wouldn't be that fish butt?
All right, guys, I have tallied up the points. I'm going to go through these round by round, and then I will reveal the ultimate winner. Chapter 1, the first place winner was MeganBob. The idea that Q would just show up with all of his weaponry because it's all disguised worked beautifully. Round 2 also went to MeganBob. Weaponizing the awful cowardice of Sir Robin. It was amazing. I have to say, though, round 2 was the single hardest round for me to judge, because seriously, every single one of you did so good. I loved Todd taking out Khan with a high five. And I loved Dr. Heller both using his own inventions and also messing with the transporter. It was great. So round 3 went to Claire. The Terminator stuff was perfect, and All Might was completely in character. Like, the thing that would keep him on the planet is also the thing that motivates him to keep being a hero. It's just amazing. Chapter 4 went to Miles for coming up with the single most Star Trek solution that we had on this entire episode. Like, learning how to communicate with the Tribbles and then finding a planet where they can prosper is not only in character for his captain, but for the setting. It was perfect. Chapter 5 went to Claire, narrowly beating out MeganBob, turning Miss Frizzle into the Doctor. Claire finally found a use for that awful, worthless character, and you gotta give him some credit for that.
Heroic.
And then finally, Chapter 6, Generations. I mean, he's your most OP character, Claire. Like Bugs Bunny. Just
nice.
I don't know that there's a character he can't beat. I gave you the first place for
That's
that
awesome.
one. So, tallying up the points, I see that we have a 3-way tie.
Wow. You're just lying, dude.
No, that is the truth.
I didn't even know that was possible.
Each one of you got 12 points.
So what do we do?
Sudden death.
Yeah. Yeah, we've never done this before on Smash Fiction because you just make a call, but Surprise Party is a very rational thing. Like, it's all points. I'm just the arbiter, and I'm looking at this, and it all came down to the wire, and you guys crossed simultaneously. So I feel like this is in character with the cooperative spirit of the Federation and of Starfleet. And, you've all done a great job keeping the Federation alive. So I think what needs to happen is each of you choose a character. You're all meeting at a bar in a Starfleet docking bay while your ships are being refueled and under repair. We're just kind of going to figure out what each of these characters does now that this particular tour of duty has come to a close. And maybe they share their thoughts about this ship that they just had an amazing tour of duty with.
Oh, well, this isn't satisfying at all.
Yes, I know.
Miles.
I don't think I can pick any character but Merlin for this.
Oh my.
I agree.
Merlin's just going to be like, you never believe these idiots that I've been in space with and they just don't know what they're doing. We have a captain who just thinks everything can be solved by being nice and kind to everybody, and got some helms person who didn't even bother steering the ship. She was too busy getting into fistfights, which I guess is in character, but still, you have a job, young lady. I don't care if you're magic. I'm magic. I still do my job. Who else have we got? Oh, the horse. Oh, the horse. He was a good horse.
Oh.
Anyway, then we had that other lady who went crazy on the Spore Planet, and I had to be like, ooh, shape-shifting game, as I've done 1,000 times. I'm getting a little bit sick of it, I don't mind telling you. And then, of course, there was the Todd. Have you ever met the Todd? I'm convinced he's from an alien species we haven't catalogued yet. It was a good horse, though. I did like the horse.
Miles, how have you not played this character on League yet?
I was gonna say.
I mean, look, I might have to. Maybe this is my first shipwrecked character. What do you think?
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
I think that the person who comes into the bar here is wearing a Star Trek standard jumpsuit uniform, but over that, he is also wearing a leather jacket and a pair of sunglasses. It is Uncle Bob, the T-800, and he's going to tell them all about these people who are all very different from one another and came from a lot of different places. Despite that they were all very different, they all sought to understand each other and help give each other a place where they could belong. Like, there was the orc woman who came from a people that didn't understand her. There was the musician fellow who was always wearing rollerblades, who came from an oppressed society. There was the man who came from a place where everybody was violent and he didn't want to hurt anybody. There was a superhero who always had to act tough, but, could never show anybody his sensitive side. And of course, there was Mr. Poe. He did some stuff. He didn't really get to know him that well. He wasn't really paying attention whenever he was talking, so he doesn't really know anything about him. But he probably had a rich inner life of some kind. But in the end, they were able to all get to know each other and become better from one another. He got an emotion chip installed in him after he learned that those were a thing. And, it does a decent enough job of replicating it. Given that his tour of duty is up and his 120-year-long power cell is almost out, he's going to spend his last few years retired back on that planet with the spores so that he can see the world without this red filter on it for a little while.
That's beautiful.
So a man with a lean runner's body is sitting at one of the other stools, playing a lute. It is Sir Robin. He goes, I honestly couldn't tell you what happened on the 5 years. Spent most of it running away, some of it hiding. That's how I got into shape. I don't regret it. I did get this sweet tribble, and I have enjoyed that immensely. The tribble is on his shoulder. And I learned the power of the lute. So all in all, I think I won.
Well, thank you for that, guys. I am as surprised as you all are that it turned out that way, but the numbers don't lie. This is a Star Trek episode, so we're all about cold logic here.
Of course.
And that's the way it worked.
It's almost happened a few times before. I'm actually kind of surprised that this was the first one.
Tom, Fo, the trouble with Kittles.
Aww.
Over to Twitter. Thank you to Alexander, Angry Rat Lady, Florian, Icon Jade, Cosplay Devotee, Cosplay Fiend, and Changing Shades. And on Tumbles, thank you to Sid Rabbit Blog. And on Facebook, thank you to Adam Mayo and Kosuke Takahashi. So we hit $300 on Patreon. Thank you guys so much. We can finally use this hard-earned money to buy.
That is the phrase, yes.
Better.
I'd say it was pretty fucking hard-earned, yeah.
Yeah.
To finally get some good audio equipment.
We're going to be using this money that you guys have very generously provided us with to kind of upgrade a lot of our recording setups. So hopefully you will start hearing an uptick in audio quality at some point in the near future, and we have you to thank for it. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for everything that you do, really. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we hope that you will come back next week when we're back to a Smash Fiction match. It's going to be My Hero Academia versus X-Men Evolution.
Oh, that's why Claire said that she was doing the My Hero. It all makes sense now. It's a payoff.
Smash Metafiction is produced by Miles Schneiderman and production assistant Sharon Schneiderman, with logo design by Claire Mulcairn.
Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com for our theme song, Volatile Reaction.
You can find us on Twitter at SmashFic Podcast and search for the Smash Fiction Podcast on Facebook, Tumblr, and YouTube.
Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice, and if you leave us a good review, we shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Smash Fiction is made possible thanks to our supporters on Patreon at patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast. Please consider donating as little as $1 each month. It helps us keep the show going, and we have great rewards and extra content for those who help us out.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other contributions, send them to us at smashfictionpodcast@gmail.com and help us continue the fight. No, they don't do that. That would be irradiated space glue. That's not useful for anyone.
I love the thought that in the space future that they would need glue. Yeah, if you're going to go to space school, well, don't forget your space supplies. You still need glue.
That's right.
Don't be heartless, Miles. They turned him into gelatin. I took the gamble with this one, you see, because when you save your dumpus for the last one, usually it doesn't pay off because they have to do something very important and dramatic. But I think this is something that's very well within his skill set.
You mean dying quietly? Yeah.
When you play the game of dumpuses, you win or